everyone. Veteran diplomat Lakshmi Murdeshwar Puri has written her first book. Well, it doesn't really talk about her own life journey in which she has broken many a glass ceilings, but this one is a fiction. It is called Swallowing the Sun. We are in conversation with the author. Ma'am, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV.
Wonderful to be here with you, Marya.
Ma'am, before we get into the title of the book, and perhaps that will be the last question that I'm going to ask, let me begin with a fiction which is coming at a time where India and the world will be witnessing what will be seen as a reclaiming of civilizational glory with the consecration of the Ram Temple on 22nd. Your book is also about that reclamation. The timing, many would say that you have timed it with 22nd of January.
Well, it is serendipity, I would say, that it has come out at this time. And yes, it celebrates, it explores young people's reclaiming of their civilizational heritage, its richness, its depth, its variety, and its many splendored beauty. And that, and the spiritual heritage as well. So all of that is certainly at that time when we were striving at the same time, at the same moment for India's freedom from colonial rule. The civilizational reclaiming was one oar, to move the boat towards freedom, because it was a freedom from the colonialism of the mind that was being attempted at that time by these young characters in my novel. And the same thing is happening more than 75 years later, when there is an attempt also to reclaim that heritage, to also in many ways reinvent it and bring it to the world and claim our place in the world. So all of that is certainly evocative. The novel is evocative of what's happening now, and what's happening now brings back memories that are embedded in this novel.
Yes, because if you go through the chapters, and I have gone through some of them, you certainly feel that, because I went to Ayodhya, I saw those palpable energy there, and that energy is reflected through very strong women characters. Your book is being said that it will be remembered as one of the most powerful novels of the 21st century. Why do you think it is being said this way?
Well, I'm very pleased that it is being said that it is a powerful novel. It's the broad sweep of this novel, not only in terms of the years it covers, the eventful years, the most tumultuous period in Indian history in the 20th century, and it's also about the themes, the powerful themes it explores and it dives into, deep dives into. They include of course, the theme of self-realization, that every human being seeks to realize his or her own potential, of everyone having the potential and being able to break boundaries, to attain the unattainable. And that is the title of the book, Swallowing the Sun. And it is based on Muktabai, a 13th century saint's Abhanga, a devotional verse, which basically lists a number of miracles, including a little ant daring to fly into the sky and swallowing the sun. So anything is possible. The can-do spirit of that time, which young people were fired by. I wanted to capture that and again bring it to the front. The other is the freedom struggle itself. The nature of the freedom struggle, the different characters, the heroes there, and the characters in my novel who are no less just because they are not Mahatma Gandhi or Jawaharlal Nehru or Ambedkar or Veer Savarkar. But they are admirers of them. They also live in that space and try to contribute in their own way to the freedom struggle. So that whole canvas, again, it's a huge cast of characters, an epic saga.
Yes.
So in so many ways, it's a coming of age novel. It's a feminist statement in all its glorious dimensions. And so I do think that we have also covered it's poetic, it's also evocative of a very particular cultural renaissance that was happening at that time, literary renaissance, poetic renaissance, theatre in Maharashtra. So all these elements make it crackle with beauty and joy.
And since you are a Maharashtrian, correct me, many would say that it is a domain of your choice and liking. But let me get into some paragraphs which are very, very fascinating. Among others, you go on to talk about, Malti was the Sutradhar, holding the dance drama together. As Champatai explained, Sutra Dharayati, Yaha Saha Sutradhar. The one who holds the strings is the puppeteer, like the great puppeteer above. So who is the puppeteer? You would be clearly the puppeteer of all these characters.
Well, many people have asked me, since this novel is based or inspired, I would say inspired by my parents' story, why didn't I write a biography? The very reason was that I wanted to be the grand puppeteer, creating and the creator. Since you have been talking about Ram, I heard this bhajan, Ram tum srushta bhi ho or srishti bhi ho, drishta bhi ho or drishti bhi ho. So a novelist, and that's why I wanted to write a novel, a novelist is one who is a creator, but he is also drawing upon his own status as a creature of God. And then you are also seeing, but you are also being seen. So it is that magic of creation that I wanted to capture in this. But just to also refer to this, you picked this very interesting point. I was intrigued by it because initially I wanted the title of this book to be Dancing with the Puppeteer. And I even had a prologue, so I had to drop it later. But, it's really about fate and will.
And faith.
Fate, faith and will. So to what extent human beings control their lives? To what extent by the flick of the hands of a puppeteer, your life just takes a different turn. And that's how the characters here also experience and, try to mold their destiny as much as possible. And then they are thwarted or they are rewarded. So I just want, it's one of the very, I would say another theme of this novel about how individuals are extraordinary in so many ways because they are not fatalistic. They try to take their fate into their own hands, and yet when when there is adversity and something changes, they bounce back and they are resilient. But sometimes there is tragedy. So that's life. And that's why the connection with the puppeteer, the sutradhar, and someone holding, and it's also about power relations. Who is the sutradhar of your life? And if you look at the feminism theme, to what extent are women controlled by the men in their families or in society? So that's also an exploration.
Yes, you've weaved in a lot of ideas here, but just look at the sheer number, I would say, of women characters. You have a Malati, you have a Kamala, Surekha, Sarala, Ma Sahib, Hema Kaki, Chandra, Mai, Kashi. It's a huge list in comparison to, you have men as well. I would not say you don't have Mohan Kaka and others. There are quite a list. So it's a feminist novel, or would you say that it's exploring feminism in its new form?
I would say the latter. I think both are true in many ways. But as I said, it's a multi-genre novel. As I explained, it's a historical fiction, it's a contemporary fiction, it's as relevant today, and any young person will resonate to it. It's also in many ways based on a family saga. So it's all of that, but it's also very much at its soul a feminist offering. And in that sense, what is important is to highlight that the women characters are all those that seek to be the ants that fly into the sky out of the bounds of their circumstances. Breaking away from puppeteers. And from the enslavement of power, as there's 1 or 2, 3 chapters on that, as you know. So that is happening, but also the men characters, I have also shown how men characters have played an important role in their self-seeking and self-realization. And that is something I think that is new about this, that it is showing men as feminist characters. The Baba, the father who really drives them out of the traditional mold of child marriage, child motherhood, into education and careers. So that is one. And also Guru as one of the most empathetic lovers, and then husband. So he in fact deifies her.
So basically for all those who are thinking about these names, they have to read this book to decode what Lakshmi Puri is talking about. I'm going to go to another paragraph. This is about Bhool Bhulaiya, where you talk about, Kamla, Shaila, Chandra and others, all of them going through this test. And then you say, once there, she finally found the undistracted time to go into herself, to seek her worldly and spiritual purpose. She chanted Om, disclosed her desires and sought direction. And then she is in that Bhool Bhulaiya and she is giving a sigh of relief, and all of them are going through this test. So this is about purposefulness, which we keep talking about, and also combining it with mindfulness. What made you create so many characters?
So first to the Bhool Bhulaiya. That was to show that we all live in some kind of a centered world. So the center of my world or your world, each is, self-determined, but we are not conscious always. So this is really a philosophical kind of, journey that the headmistress, Maji, makes them take, so that when they are about to graduate, and they are young women, pioneer graduates from school. So she's wanting them to really go within themselves. Like in a labyrinth, you go inside again and again to the center without even realizing that you are doing it. And the labyrinth has a particular meaning even in Hindu philosophy. So the idea is discover your purpose, meditate as you go through that labyrinth. And I described the labyrinth, how she feels distracted at times by the Brahmini bird,
Yes.
who's of course very sweetly singing from the nearby temple, but also put somewhat put off by the crow that is cawing, and then also the Kamini bushes, the flowers, the scent of those flowers, and then the bees that they attract, she's almost stung by. So in life, as you seek your purpose and navigate the paths of the labyrinth surrounded by the walls, you must stop to take stock of where you are and where you should be going, and also shut out the distractions, the serpents. And then I also talk about sometimes as we are walking, as she's walking, she's comforted by the footfall of people around, but also, deterred by the snakes slithering through, or being forewarned of dangers by unseen voices from the future, and yet feeling very confident about going forward. So, these are the emotions as you experience in your self-discovery, but also attainment of your purpose as you go on in life.
Let me take you back to the time period that you've chosen, 50 years, and this is around the freedom movement. For someone like you who has traveled the world, you could have chosen contemporary India, modern times, but you choose a particular era. What made you do that?
That's because, Marya, I was born to my parents when they were 45. And so they were, two generations in many ways older than me. And so when I used to interact with them, I used to find that world fascinating. They were people who lived poetry, who spoke in poetic language, whether it's Greek mythology, whether it is Hindu mythology, whether it is Sanskrit, Marathi, English. So it was a very literary world that they inhabited and generated around me. So
And
passed on to me. So I wanted to recreate that world and the extraordinary journey. The other thing is that, the freedom movement. Why did I want to write about it? Because I was asked by a young interviewer, we young people now, 75 years later, we don't even remember it. So I said, precisely. So lest we forget, we do need to remember how difficult it was, what it was to be young at that time when you were enslaved, and with what great sacrifice freedom was won, how precious it is, and also how this 75 years later is the time when we reinvent ourselves in a different way and move to our 100th tryst, another tryst with destiny, in 2047. So that kind of construct was also certainly in my mind, and it's always, I'm a student of history. So, that also explains why I go back and dip into the past to learn for the present and to dream of the future. Instances in this novel where women are shown to be not just objects of the narrative, but the subjects of the narrative.
They are in many ways also taking control of them.
Control of their lives, trying to, in fact, determine the path of their lives.
And that's also very much reflection of 21st century women.
Absolutely. And that's where we should be going. And I think my stint at
Yes.
the
UN
Women certainly told me that when you tell stories, that's the best way of sending messages and bringing about mindset change, which is what is required if we are to achieve gender equality and women's empowerment.
There is this very interesting slogan, which is like a slogan which we keep hearing about, which is Bharat Mata Ki Jai. But you talk about it in the context of a play which is happening, and I'm going to read a paragraph here. It says, know that this is not just any play we are staging. It's our offering to Mother India's freedom to awaken Western educated Indian youth in our college and beyond, as you talk about it, to contribute to it in whichever way they can through their ideas, writings, and activities, without in any way endangering our studies, the completion of which is an important offering in itself. We will spawn action groups to support the Gandhi-led freedom movement. Then there was a chorus of Bharat Mata Ki Jai. The times that we are living in is that this Bharat Mata or Mother India is now also about Jai Shri Ram. These are slogans which have almost merged into each other. You have characters who are very conscious of their spiritual identity. They are conscious Hindus. At the same time, they are conscious as citizens of India. Something that we are seeing again in current times. How did you paint it?
Well, you know, this is one of the first activities that Guru and Malti and these young people in Elphinstone College undertake to demonstrate their patriotism. There are different ways of demonstrating what you can do for your country. And one of the first activities they undertake is this, that they stage a play by Mama Varerkar. He was one of the great playwrights of those times, part of the literary renaissance that I talked about. And it has a very strong message, patriotic message, but of course delivered in a very camouflaged way so that they are allowed to stage the play. And then that evokes amongst the youth an awareness of the Satyagraha movement, an awareness that they have to also contribute, that they cannot be isolated from the sea of protest and the mass movement that was swirling around them. So that is something that is sought to be evoked here. And at the same time, when that play ends, in fact, if you go further, you will see the play ends and there is a chorus of Bharat Mata Ki Jai, Jai Hind and all that. So the British authorities then call Guru and others and threaten them with suspension and ask them, how did this happen? And Mama Varerkar also gives a speech, although very much, very tactful, but the message is clear to anyone. So that was the first, and then it goes on to other actions, including participating and being lathi charged at the Simon Commission protests that were held in 1928. So there are a series of actions that they do participate in, and and which they see as a badge of honor to at that time freeing the country from British rule. But at the same time, there is, as I said, simultaneously, all of this is very much driven by a consciousness about their identity. Who am I in this ocean of India's freedom struggle is also helping them to discover who they are and what is India, the idea of India. And that is what it is all about. Each discovering, redefining, reinventing the idea of India through various means, whether it is spiritual, religious, and in many ways, the also syncretic way.
Let's end with the popular poetry or something that you wish to quote.
O Madhumalati, let this beguiling veil once and for all be pierced and fall between the manifest and the truth, between the striving and the attainment, between the worshipper and the worshipped, between me and you.
On that note, let's end this conversation. Lakshmi Murdeshwar Puri, pleasure speaking to you, ma'am.
Pleasure speaking to you too, and thank you for unveiling this book to your viewers and potential readers.
Thank you so much.